Can you imagine going to jail for a friend? This happened to Dan and Franklin. Born, raised, and befruited inside China, they'd been friends their whole entire life. Unfortunately, Dan ended up succeeding, doing well in school and landing an excellent job at a China construction bank. Unfortunately, Franklin was not doing so well. He was struggling to make ends meet and even find a job. When Dan was appointed as a governor, he decided to bring his best friend Franklin along. He appointed him as one of the managers within his bank. Unfortunately, several people within the bank did not agree. A lot of them felt that Franklin was underqualified. But Dan was in charge. He vetoed their opposition and ensured that his friend would have a job. Now, something that people did not know was that Dan was laundering money through the bank using a multitude of stagnant and dormant accounts. With the help of one colleague, he didn't even inform Franklin. Luckily for him, Dan was very close to the particular auditing company that was in charge of the bank. So he ensured that by paying the executive of that auditing company, his money laundering would not be found out. Unfortunately for him, the president of China, Jinping, is well known to be very particular about fraud, money laundering, scam, and all sorts of nefarious behaviors. In an attempt to crack down on such actions, the president decided that he would ensure that all banks went through the same auditing company appointed by him. Due to that, the bank that Dan worked at was going to have a switch in auditing company. And unfortunately for Dan, he knew nobody in that company. A few months down the line, Dan's bank, as well as a few other banks, were flagged for potential fraudulent behavior and money laundering schemes. So Dan decides, you know what, pending investigation, he doesn't want to go down for this. So he reaches out to his friend Franklin and says, look, guy, I've done this thing, but I can't go to jail for this. So please take the fall. When they investigate and everything comes to light, take the fall. I will ensure that even if you have to go to jail, I will get you out in 1 year. At first, Franklin is very hesitant because he's like, I'm now managing to live my life. You want me to go to jail? But he knows that Dan has done so much for him. So he agrees and says, okay, fine. Investigation occurs. The money laundering is found out. The scamming is found out. And Franklin takes the fall. Before going to jail, however, he talks to Dan and says, look, I'm about to go to jail. You need to do these few things for me before I go. He says Dan should ensure that there's $10 million sitting in his bank account, ensure that his child's school fees are paid and catered for, and ensure that when he comes out of jail, his criminal record is clean. Obviously, Dan quickly says, yes, don't worry, I've got you covered. And he does exactly that. So Franklin goes to jail. Now 1 year goes by and Dan visits but doesn't get Franklin out of jail. 2 years go by, 3 years go by, and eventually Franklin spends the whole 10 years in Chinese prison. Upon his release, Dan is here to welcome him and says, oh, you know, I tried really hard to get you out, but I wasn't able to. But thank you for taking the fall. You know, I've got you covered. Now that you're out, I've got you covered. I will protect you. Your record will be cleaned. You have your money in your bank. You are sorted. As a welcome home present, I've organized a little getaway party for you, right? So Dan organizes a party for Franklin, invites girls, music, booze, and everything, and of course, leaves handy dandy protection. Guys, always use protection. He leaves them to it and comes back the following morning. First thing Dan notices is that the girls are gone. That's okay. He's not too worried. But then he also notices that the protection he'd left has not been opened. He ignores it. That's fine. Maybe he's tired. Maybe he's not feeling it. It's okay. Fast forward a few months down the line, Dan is noting some strange behaviors from Franklin, things that he didn't do or used to say before. Franklin seems to have a disinterest in a lot of things he used to have. When Dan will post like a picture on social media, Franklin's always first to comment, fine boy, fresh boy, you looking good, them things. And Dan has been getting some very strange vibes from Franklin, who's become a lot more soft, so to speak, a lot more concerned about his appearance. There are just a few things that are changing. Time goes on and Franklin invites him to his house. They go, they chill, they're watching movies, they're having a great time, you know, trying to rebuild their friendship after all the time lost. And as they're sitting down watching a movie, Franklin slides his hand and softly puts it on Dan's thigh. Shocked, Dan turns around and looks at Franklin's like, what the hell? What's going on? What are you doing? Franklin says, look. I know you've done so much for me. You've helped me through it. The 10 years have been long. And I wouldn't ask a lot from you, but I just want to ask you this one thing. Intrigued, Dan's like, yeah, what's up? Franklin says, would you bend over for me? Now that's an entangled web. That's all I've got for you guys today. Find out more on nanasenpa.com. Follow us on all social media platforms, and I'll catch you in the next video.